sure. But I'm told the Eagles absolutely do not want to dump Carson Wentz. And really, talking to execs around the league, they still believe this is one of the more talented quarterbacks around. None of injuries on their offensive line and wide receiver, tight end. He just has not got going. He just needs to see the ball go in the hoop, as one of his teammates told me recently. Maybe he can just get hot if something good can happen, because nothing good is happening for him right now. But he has an albatross of a contract with almost $60 million in dead money next year, huge cap hit. I mean, they can't really get out of it unless they were to trade him. Now, he would have some trade value because of his talent. But right now, unless there's a colossal bomb, if he just bombs again on Monday night and really struggles, they want to right the ship and keep it with Wentz.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin is presented by Progressive Insurance, and Jeremy Fowler is with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Shay and Jordan Cornette filling in this morning. So, Jeremy, yesterday we saw the Detroit Lions lose badly to the Houston Texans. And now the Lions are 4-7, and Matt Patricia had stipulations going into this season that they needed to be better, essentially, for him to keep his job. I think it's pretty obvious they are not better. And I know this morning the rumor mill is starting with Patricia's job security. What is the latest with him in Detroit?
Yeah, because they said they wanted to be playing meaningful games in December, and it doesn't look like that's going to be happening right now. And so, they know they are on high alert right now. I know that. Speaking to some people in Detroit, they knew even 6 weeks ago they had to make some sort of run, right the ship, and it has not happened. So, they're on edge, but no decision has been made as far as I know. I know Detroit wanted to give Matt Patricia the entire season to let this play out. But their hand might be forced at some point, and that could be now. So that they're sort of waiting right now in suspense in Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jeremy Fowler, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. That was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. So they want to wait it out. And Jordan, you and I have talked a little bit about firing coaches in season so far this year, because this year is so weird from every other year, because head coaches are not just dealing with what's going on their football team. They're also dealing with memos, and they're also dealing with coronavirus protocols and how to manage that, and who can be in a facility. You're seeing with Harbaugh right now, and who cannot be in a facility. And so if you remove the head coach and you put a coordinator as the interim head coach, he now has way more work, and you don't have people to delegate the tasks to, essentially, if that makes sense. So as Jeremy Fowler just said, the Lions wanted to wait till the end of the season. This is probably why. This is probably why we're seeing this with the Jets. Maybe they don't have someone that can take over right away and just step into a role as head coach. But still, it just seems like such a miss at this point if you don't make a move now, because of the comparisons to Jim Caldwell, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you know who you've got in Matt Patricia, and it hasn't worked out. You look at the remaining schedule there. The 5 games left on the schedule are all teams that will or can very much so beat them. There are 4 teams that we look at on that remaining schedule that are in the playoff hunt. And the Vikings are a team that is out of it, but they're a good football team. I don't see any wins left on the schedule for the Detroit Lions. You've got 10 days between now and the next game in Chicago for you to make this adjustment. So if there's ever a favorable position within the season to move on a coach, the time is right now. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I'm surprised we went to sleep without hearing news that Matt Patricia
it was a holiday.
It's happened before. I believe they moved on a coach in 2005 before too. So and it happened on Thanksgiving. It's possible that could happen. It didn't. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen today. But again, this whole look, he's not going to survive into next season. That's not going to happen. But it's a unique world during this COVID time where there's an apprehension. There's some trepidation in hiring a coach in this COVID era because you don't know what the future is going to be. You can't have those comfortable face-to-face conversations and meetings and really get a good feel for who you're making this type of financial and time investment in. Those are massive. That's the swing between a franchise moving with good momentum going one way or one that is going to stay in the quicksand and be stuck in the mud. So it's not a favorable position for any franchise to be in where you feel like you're in the position in this era of COVID to have to go find the new person to lead your franchise. It's not an ideal spot.
The Lions have already taken a step back. They knew that something needed to happen after last season, after they were underachieving last season. And so the powers that be said to both Quinn and to Patricia, hey, we need to play, as Jeremy Fowler just said, we need to play meaningful games in December in order for this relationship to continue working. We're not there. I know it's only November. December's like days away. Like that's not happening. And so Matt Patricia brings in his own personnel, decides on his own players, does things his way for another year. When you have the third pick in the draft this past year and you take Jeff Okudah, cornerback from Ohio State, who I'm not saying is a bad player.
And an injury. I mean, injuries on that defense for sure. But to me, it's not fun to watch them either. I mean, the conservative play calling offensively, when they got down in that game, there's no flexibility. There's no versatility. There's no creativity with any of this offensively. You're down big, and you still commit to the run and these long, sustainable drives that eat clock. You're trailing by multiple scores. It just seems to me like there's, in this league where there's so much creativity to the point where you're watching the Texans and be like, another trick play? It was almost like a flex from the Texans looking at such a basic offensive approach from the Detroit Lions, which is another reason they're being held back. I get the injuries on that defense, but that defense also has shown no life at all under a defensive-minded guy. There are no results to point to. There is no future to be keen or high on moving forward with this Detroit Lions team, and that starts with your head man and Matt Patricia. You've got to make a move to inject a pulse back into this, make your fan base believe that you do have a commitment to winning and do want to see this tide turn, because at this point, there's nothing really even talk about with these Lions.
The state of Michigan has got some issues with their sports teams. I mean, the Wolverines are bad, the Spartans are bad, the Lions are bad, the Cavs are bad.
Michigan State basketball, though.
Yeah, that's true. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin is presented by Progressive Insurance. Quoting home insurance just got easier with Progressive's Home Quote Explorer. Quote and buy all online at progressive.com. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, we're filling in here. Shay and Jordan Cornette, and right now we're going to go from A to Z.
From Chicago to Philly and everywhere in between. From A to Z.
Speaking of Chicago, let's start there. Who's going to start for quarterback for the Chicago Bears against the Green Bay Packers Sunday in primetime? Being a Chicago girl myself, this all frightens me. The Bears taking on the Packers in itself, and then also who's going to be the starting quarterback. Per Adam Schefter here for the second straight day. Bears quarterback Nick Foles did not practice due to that hip injury, while Mitch Trubisky, on the other hand, was a full participant in practice. Trubisky now tracking to start Sunday against the Packers. Here's Matt Nagy on that decision.
With both of these guys, with where they're at and their injuries, that's what we're kind of working through right now to see exactly where they're at. So the good thing for us coming off the bye is it happened over the bye for Nick, and now we're able to kind of day by day just see where he's at. We're going through and just trying to figure out, okay, health-wise, where they're at, and then also us too, like coming through the bye, like I said, us evaluating where we're at as a team, as an offense. All of that is on the table.
Okay, I know Matt Nagy really well. I've covered him for the last few years in Chicago. I have a nice relationship with Matt Nagy. And at this point, this is exactly what I would assume Matt Nagy would say. Doesn't want to tell the Packers exactly who's starting. Packers are no dummies. I'm sure their defensive coordinator, Mike Pettin, is sitting there going, okay, it's probably going to be Mitch Trubisky considering Nick Foles hasn't practiced. However, I know the majority of their time and their focus during the bye week was figuring out how to make the offense click, how to make it work, how to establish some sort of rhythm and some sort of points that they can put on the board.
They just realized this was a problem in this bye week.
No, I'm sure they realized it last season. Mitch Trubisky is not going to be the long-term answer. I'm sorry, I don't think he ever will be. He's not that kind of quarterback. However, he can generate some plays and some life with his legs. And now it's time to rethink how you're going about this offense. And this is the week it starts, and Mitch Trubisky gets back in the fold, and now you've got an easy out with Nick Foles. You're not benching him, so to speak. You're not kind of putting him on the bench and causing all this uproar with him. Let him slowly get healthy. Let him merge back into that backup role, so when you need to call him in as a reliever, he plays like the reliever he was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and look, Nick Foles is that reliever. I keep hearing this narrative, like Nick Foles is good when he's coming off of being the backup. Philadelphia had one of the best running attacks in the NFL when Nick Foles was their quarterback. So Nick Foles was in a position to succeed in the play action and also with a heavy reliance on a rushing attack that was elite at that point in the NFL. That propelled him to success. When I look at the Chicago Bears, I look at, again, a lack of creativity in play calling, and I also see an inability to get anything going with the ground game. With Nick Foles as your quarterback for your Bears, their rushing attack is averaging 2.5 yards per carry. 2.5 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done, especially when Matt Nagy spent the whole offseason talking about we're going to get the run game going. We're going to run the football. That's going to lead us to success offensively. There's been none of that. But you know where they have had success there offensively? When Mitch Trubisky is their quarterback.
Minimal success.
Hold on. Let's try and find a silver lining here. That team has been able to run the ball with an average of 5 yards per carry this season when Mitch Trubisky was the quarterback for those 2 games out of the gate. Smaller sample size, sure. But you know what Mitch Trubisky gives you in a stagnant offense? An element, an audible of that guy can use his legs himself and run the football. Nick Foles was an absolute statue there in the pocket. So when you have no creativity, you have no forward mobility in moving the chains, at least Mitch Trubisky gives you that 11th hour, tuck it and run. That at least gives you something to look at. And the Packers defense is a vulnerable one. I'll tell you why Mitch Trubisky may do it this week. Because Mitch Trubisky isn't looking over his shoulder. Coming into this season, he knew the highly paid Nick Foles was looking over his shoulder at the backup position. Nick Foles is injured. Mitch Trubisky can go out there and just play football and not worry about the outside noise. Will that be good enough? We'll see.
Okay, 3 things. Mitch Trubisky, in terms of the run game getting established when he was the starting quarterback, it was against the Lions, the Giants, and half of the game against the Falcons.
You like the Giants defense.
Now, not the second game of the season in the game they lost Saquon Barkley. Also, you being the positive one, normally that's me.
I was well fed yesterday.